Good morning, everyone, again. Welcome to the Draft Southeast Marine Plan Consultation webinar. I'd like to start by apologising for some of the join noises. It's not happening for everyone, so we're not quite sure why it is happening. But hopefully you're all on the call now and we shouldn't get too many more. In any case, for this first bit, it's just me running through some housekeeping, and therefore, if you should miss anything, we'll repeat that as we go through. So for those of you that haven't met me, my name is Rachel Brown. I'm the Marine Planning Manager here at the MMO, and today I'm joined with three other presenters. We have Mel Nichols, a Senior Marine Planner here at the MMO, Natalie Jackson, a Marine Planner, and also Tom Pavitt, who you might all have met and or know, who is the Coastal Marine Planner for the Southeast. I want to welcome you all to the webinar. It's going to last for about an hour, but I do promise it's not going to be lots and lots of PowerPoint. We're going to give you some information, but we also want you to ask some questions as well, so it'll be a little bit interactive. You also don't have to listen to me for the entire time. I will be switching between the various presenters. And the webinar, as you might have heard, if you were just on the call a couple of minutes ago, is actually being recorded. We're going to put the recording up on our YouTube channel as soon as we can, so that those of your colleagues who maybe couldn't attend today can at least watch the webinar with plenty of time to respond to the consultation. You are all supposed to be muted on the call, but given the couple of issues we've had first thing, if you do all of a sudden unmute yourself, please do try and remute just so that everyone else can hear. I am going to tell you how to interact in a minute, because there are a couple of ways to do that. So, that's the introduction. What are we going to cover today? Well, some of you may have had lots of experience with the MMO and marine planning, and some of you, this might be the first time you've become involved in the marine planning process. So we're going to start off by talking about the MMO and our roles and responsibilities, and then explain in broad terms what marine planning is and how it fits within the legislative context. We're then going to talk about the journey so far to develop the Draft Southeast Marine Plan, because it has been ongoing since 2016. Then the bulk of today's presentation is going to be delivered by Mel, who's going to explain to you what the consultation is, statutory consultation for the Draft Southeast Marine Plan, and the tools that we've got to allow you to respond to that, and some of the hints and tips about how to use that effectively and efficiently. Then finally, we're going to wrap up with some information about implementation, which is basically the use of the plans.
Has joined the conference.
So we're going to wrap up with some information about implementation and use of the plans, and let you know about the implementation training sessions that we're running alongside the consultation. And then finally, I will be explaining what our next steps are in terms of what happens after the consultation and when you can expect an adopted Southeast Marine Plan. Okay, so as I said, you are all muted on the call, but we do want the webinar to be interactive, and there are two ways that we're going to do that. The first is that we are going to ask you some questions, and to do that, we're going to use polling within the webinar feature itself. So you should see on the screen a screenshot of what a poll will look like in your WebEx screen. The questions will appear on the right-hand side, where the red circle is now, and you select your option, and then you click the submit button, which is being circled in red now. That polling screen, it will close. If you close it, it will reopen when we ask another question. And don't worry, the polls aren't too difficult. It's just to gauge your experience levels and understand whether we're delivering the right information to you today. So let's have a go with the first question. I'm going to ask you, all of those of you on the call, how would you rate your current knowledge of marine planning? So there are four choices. Either A, you've got no knowledge, this is the first marine planning event that you've attended. B, you've got limited knowledge, you know the basics, you might have attended one event in the past. C, you've got good knowledge of marine planning, you've attended more than one marine planning event. Or D, you have a really in-depth knowledge of marine planning, for example, your job requires its use on a day-to-day basis. So the poll should be open now. If you go ahead and select one of those options, A, B, C, or D, and then click the Submit button at the bottom. I'm just looking at my webinar manager. We'll have about 20 seconds of that. We'll see what your results are, and we're going to use the answer to this question to really gauge how much detail we give you in that first set of presentations about the MMO and the legislative context for marine planning. So we're just closing in 5 seconds. Interesting results coming in. Okay, so there's a mix of you on the call between those of you that have no knowledge or limited knowledge. So what we'll do is we'll try and cover as much of the basics as possible. And if you've got questions, you can ask us. There's no such thing as a silly question, as you know, so I'm happy to cover that at the end. So the next way that we want the webinar to be interactive is for you to be able to ask us questions. And we're using a tool that some of you might have used before in conferences and other meetings called Slido. There are some instructions up on your screen right now. As I said at the beginning, all of you are muted during the webinar, but if you want to ask a question at any time, what you do is either on your mobile device or in another browser window, type in www.sly.do, navigate to the start page, and you'll be asked to enter an event code. The one for this webinar is MMOSE for the Southeast, MMOSE. And then you'll be given a little text box to type in. You type your question and hit send. You can be anonymous or you can put your name in. You don't have to, so you can ask the questions anonymously. If there is a question already on Slido that you want to see an answer to, you'll see there's a little thumbs up icon that you can click, and that essentially likes that question. Please note that everyone can see the questions that you're writing, so please do try and keep them, I guess, respectful. And if they're not quite clear, then what I'll do is I might have to follow up with you afterwards. So if you put a name on, then I can do that. You have to type the link, so don't try and click it through your webinar screen. That doesn't work. You must type it in manually either into your browser or your mobile device. We're going to re-show these instructions periodically throughout the webinar, so don't worry if you haven't done it right now, or if you think, oh, I don't have a question at the moment, but think of one later, so you can do it later. And then what we're going to do for the last 15 minutes of the webinar is have a Q&A session. So the top 5, depending on how complicated they are, questions that have the most likes, I will attempt to answer at the end. Any that I don't get to answering, I will do a written response and we'll publish that alongside the webinar when we publish it on YouTube. So you'll have all the answers. Now, for any of you that have been involved in the other webinars or have been involved in other plan areas, we have done the same thing for all of the other webinars that we've held to date. So this is our 5th and final webinar. We've done one for the Draft Northeast, Draft Southwest, and Draft Northwest Marine Plans, and we've held a national webinar. So even if you don't want to watch all of the webinars, you might find that the question and answers are useful for you too. So we will be circulating them via email once they are loaded up onto our website. Okay, thanks for your patience. I know that was a lot of information there. I'm now going to hand over to Natalie Jackson, who's going to talk you through a bit of background about the MMO and marine planning.
Good morning. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for joining us, everyone. So as Rachel said, my name is Natalie Jackson, and I'm a marine planner located in Newcastle. I'll be taking you through some of the background information on the MMO and marine planning. If you do have any questions, then please do reply on Slido, and we'll do our best to answer them, as Rachel said. So quick background on the MMO. So we are a non-departmental public body established in 2010 through the Marine and Coastal Access Act 2009, which some of you might be familiar with. From this point onwards, I'll refer to it as MACA, just because it's a bit of a mouthful. And the MMO is sponsored by the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, which you also might be familiar with. Our role is to license, regulate and plan marine activities in the seas around England so that they're carried out in a sustainable way. Our responsibilities include managing England's fishing fleet and quotas, creating and enforcing marine conservation bylaws, responding to marine emergencies, and of course our functions in relation to marine planning as well as marine licensing. Marine planning is a devolved function in the UK. So the Secretary of State for DEFRA is the Marine Planning Authority for England, and functions that are related to marine planning have been delegated to the MMO. The Marine and Fisheries Department and Welsh Government are the authorities for the Welsh waters, the Department for Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs for the Irish waters, and likewise Marine Scotland covers the Scottish waters. All of these authorities are responsible for producing their own plan, and therefore the MMO work closely with these authorities to make sure that all UK waters are being managed in a cohesive system.
Has joined the conference.
So as I was saying, in order to make sure that all the UK waters are being managed, they're done cohesively. The Crown dependencies and bordering European countries have been involved in the development of the English marine plans as well. So as you can see from the chart in front of you, hopefully it's popped up with the varied responsibilities. There are a lot of departments that have functions in the marine area. So this graph demonstrates the varied responsibilities of all the organisations and the limit to which their remit extends. So you can see that there's a bit of overlap in the table. The MMO covers all responsibilities from the mean high water springs out to 200 nautical miles. This means that we have an advisory role. We cover fisheries enforcement, development enforcement, surveillance, licensing, planning and conservation, as well as regulation. As you can see from the map, England's marine areas are exceptionally busy with overlapping and sometimes competing environmental, economic and social interests. The marine planning provides the mechanism for which space and resources for a given marine plan area can be strategically optimised for sustainable economic growth, while at the same time trying to protect the environment. It is true to say that marine planning won't offer every party exactly and precisely what they want, but it does seek to be equitable, it seeks to be efficient and evidence-based in its outcomes. Marine planning, as you can see, one of our lines, we therefore try to ensure that the right activities happen at the right place, at the right time and in the right way, placing sustainable development at the centre of all of the decisions that we make. Marine planning delivers cross-governmental policy priorities in the marine area, overlaid with stakeholder views, evidence and issues that might be area-specific. The marine area consists of the seabed, the water column, the surface area, and therefore you can see that multiple activities can happen at the same time in different dimensions or in the same location but at different times of the year. Marine plans therefore promote of activities. So I'll try to take you through some legislation. It's a wee bit dry, so I'll do my best to try and explain it. And as I said, if you do have any questions,
Tom Scott Haggerty
has joined the conference.
So legislation-wise, the 2009 MACA Act, so that's the Marine and Coastal Access Act I mentioned previously, that provides the domestic legislative basis for marine planning system. And the Marine Policy Statement was adopted by all UK administrations in March 2011. This provides the policy framework for the preparation of all UK marine plans and contains a range of policy objectives and considerations which are used to inform decision-making in the absence of a marine plan. The job of marine plans is to translate the Marine Policy Statement into detailed policy and spatial guidance for each marine plan area. And these plans for all English waters will be adopted by 2021. Section 58 specifically in MACA says that all public bodies making authorisation and enforcement decisions which affect or might affect the UK marine area must be made in accordance with the Marine Policy Statement and marine plans or state its reasons why not. All other decisions must be made with regard to the Marine Policy Statement and marine plans. For example, if you're a public or local authority and reviewing a plan. Hopefully I've given some background information and I'll just hand back to Rachel.
Thanks very much, Natalie. was a whistle-stop tour of the MMO and marine planning. So have you got any questions on those presentations that we just gave? The instructions are back on your screen for Slido. Was there anything that was unclear there about the legislation or about the MMO or about our functions in regards to marine planning? If you want to ask us a question, navigate to www.sly.do, enter the event code MMOSE, just type your question in and hit send. And if there are, well, when you get there, if there are any other questions that you want to hear the answer to, click the little thumbs up button to like. As I said, the 5 questions...
Grundy has joined the conference.
The 5 questions that have the most likes will be answered at the end of the webinar. I do apologise once again for the joining notifications. Our system here is saying that they're all turned off, so I'm not quite sure what's going on. But what we will try and do as people join the webinar a little bit later is we'll pause so that you're not missing any of the audio. Okay, so let's have another question for you. We'll put that up on the screen right now. Before joining this webinar, did you intend to respond to the consultation for the draft South East Marine Plan? Really easy choice of responses this time. A, yes, B, no, C, you're not sure, or D, you've already responded, which is amazing. And we have actually received some responses already. So this is the second of our 3 questions. Just be as honest as you like. It's completely anonymous. You'll see the option there up on your webinar screen. Select A, B, C, or D, and then click Submit. You've got about 15 seconds left to respond there. Overwhelmingly, you're all saying yes, you are intending to respond to the consultation. Well, that puts a little bit of pressure on Mel to make sure that he gives you all of the information you need to be able to do that. But before we get to that point, I am going to hand over to your South East Coastal Planner, Tom Pavitt, who's going to explain the journey so far in developing the draft South East Marine Plan. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Rachel. Good morning, everyone. You're listening to Tom Pavitt. As Rachel said, I'm the Coastal Marine Planner for the South East area. So I engage with stakeholders in London, Kent, Essex, and Suffolk. So if you're calling in from those areas or you're concerned about things happening in those areas, I guess I'm your man. So these presentations I'm going to go through now, as Rachel said, journey so far, including I've got a nice picture of the Thames there, although the House of Parliament hasn't looked like that for about 4 years, as you'll be aware. But let's carry on to the next slide. Hurrah, another map. So in England, the MMO developing marine plans for 11 plan areas, including the South East Marine Planner, but all the other areas in England too. So this map is showing that we currently do already have 2 marine plans adopted. So in 2014, we adopted the East Marine Plan, that's shown in red and on the map, in the inshore and offshore. And in 2018, we published the South Marine Plan, which is in blue in the map there. But you guys are probably more interested in the Southeast, I assume. So this map now is showing that the Southeast Marine Plan area, along with 3 others, so the Northeast, Northwest, and Southwest, are being developed concurrently at the same time, where we aim that the consultation draft marine plans will be published in 2021. So obviously we've got the Southwest, Northeast, Northwest, and Southeast shown in the coloured areas on that map. And we will publish a modification report later in 2020 highlighting the major changes that are made following the consultation. But that map's quite zoomed out, so let's show you a nice zoomed in of the best marine plan area, which is of course the Southeast. So the Southeast Marine Plan area stretches from Landguard Point in Felixstowe, Suffolk, all the way down to Sunfire Hoe down in Kent. And it covers just under 1,500 kilometres squared of sea, of coastline even, and just under 4,000 kilometres squared of sea. We border the East Marine Plan areas that, as I mentioned, have been adopted to the north, and we also border the South Marine Plan areas, or the inshore Marine Plan area, to the south, which has also been adopted, as well as the jurisdiction of France. And obviously the map showing there in the light blue colour, the Southeast Marine Plan area, which includes all of the tidal estuaries, in the southeast, including Thames, Medway, Stour and Orwell, etc. Okay. So apologies to those that said earlier on the call that they've been engaged in marine planning for these last couple of years, because you're most likely to have seen this slide, which is the planning cycle. But especially for those that haven't, and just as a general recap, I would like to explain a bit about how we've gone about developing the South East Marine Plan and how we will continue that. So in 2016, we started with a statement of public participation that sets out how we're going to be engaging with you guys and when. And that was how we started, really. And then on this diagram showing steps 2 to 5 is how we've gone about actually developing the marine plan, including things such as visioning, options, and actually starting to draft the policies and collecting issues. And this was done on an iterative basis, which I'll explain about on the next slide. But most importantly, as shown in the square on the map on slide 6, is that as of January 2020 and until the 6th of April, we are in the public consultation period for the draft marine plan. Which obviously Mel's going to be talking a bit about later, so hopefully that you guys will respond to. Once we've taken everyone's views from that in step 7, we will review the comments and address them where appropriate. And then obviously it will become adopted and signed off as a statutory marine plan along with an implementation monitoring report. However, we don't want it to sit on the shelf, so every 3 years we will see whether, produce a report to see whether the marine plan is still sound and still relevant, and if not, the Secretary of State can deem whether to go around the planning cycle again. At the centre of everything we do is evidence-based. For example, our issues on our issues database, all of those have evidence linked to them, as well as stakeholder engagement, as what I do for the majority of my job, and obviously the marine plans have a sustainability appraisal and HRA, which is shown in the middle of that diagram. So that's a very brief whistle-stop tour of the planning cycle. So I mentioned about the iterative development. So what is that? So for the last, we've had 3 iterations, or you could call it basically 3 years. For the last 3 years, we've produced outputs to engage with you guys on the call for the reasons shown in the 3 bullet points there. So the first one, make sure that outputs are delivered to build on firm foundations. So starting in 2016, especially 2017, to make sure that we've got all the issues from the South East Marine Plan area to engage with you at an early point. Secondly, to be visible, to show our development and have feedback opportunities at multiple stages. And lastly, be responsive to change. And some examples, in the last 3 years that I've been doing this role, we've had issues being removed from the database, including things such as the Garden Bridge on the Thames, as well as new things such as air quality and houseboats being added. So this iterative approach shown that we've been engaging with you guys and been responsive to the issues that you raised. We've also provided, after these iterations, which was mainly done by workshops and also an online engagement tool, we produced engagement summaries also, so people can look at and see what we actually discussed and the results of those, and those are available on gov.uk. Okay, so the timelines is kind of the key point, and people write down the dates. So as I mentioned, we started in 2016, and we've had iterations for the past 3 years. So you've got iteration 1, 2, and 3, and we're currently in the draft consultation period, which will close on the 6th of April. So we're hoping that the marine plans are going to be signed off by the Secretary of State, and we aim for the adoption by 2021 to meet relevant targets that we are abiding by. So that's the main timeline that we're adhering to.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Tom. That was a quick whistle-stop tour around the journey so far in our development of the draft South East Marine Plan. Some of you on the call might have been at our iteration workshops and wondered how we were going to bring it all together into what is now in our draft South East Marine Plan. And now it's your opportunity to comment and support or dislike the way that that's gone in the formal consultation. But before we move on to the details of that, I'm just going to show you those instructions again. Have you got any questions on the journey so far. If you haven't been involved in those previous stages, perhaps you want a little bit more information about what exactly it was that we engaged on, or the evidence base or anything like that. So if you do, please do go to www.sly.do, enter your event code MMOSE, type your question and hit send. Please like other people's questions by clicking the thumbs up button, although I will note that, we've just had one pop in. So we only have one question at the moment, which will make my question and answer session very well. But if you want to grill me a little bit more, please do send your questions in. The 5 with the most likes will be answered at the end of this webinar. Okay, we're now going to talk about the bulk and the reason why you're all on the call. We're going to talk about the draft South East Marine Plan statutory consultation. And to do that, I'm going to hand over to Mel Nichols, one of our senior marine planners.
Thanks, Rachel and Tom. Good morning, everybody. We've now come to what might be regarded as a heart webinar, especially as you've all said you intend to respond to the consultation. I will give you an overview of the consultation itself and what you're able to comment on, also walk you through the online tool for your responses, and most importantly, to explain why it's important that in fact you do make a response. The consultation is a statutory requirement of the Act. Many of you, hopefully all of you, were involved in our annual rounds of engagement that Tom alluded to just before. They were sort of informal on the iterative components of development of the South East Marine Plan, and your input was really invaluable and much appreciated to get the plan to its present form. But now you have a statutory opportunity to make formative representations on the whole plan. Especially important you do so because the draft South East Marine Plan is now a material consideration in decision making. So your representations on the draft will ensure the adopted plan is even more effective and fit for purpose. The consultation opened on the 14th of January and will run for 12 weeks until the 6th of April. Just why are you being consulted on? The core draft plan includes the vision, the objectives and the policies for the South East Marine Plan area. It's supported by a technical annex which gives more detail on each policy and their implementation. Then these are in turn supported by the statutory draft sustainability appraisal of the South East Marine Plan, which considers the economic, social and environmental impacts of the draft marine plan and seeks to avoid and or mitigate the negative effects as well as opportunities to maximise the plan's positive contribution to sustainability. It's important you read the essay as a whole, and you cannot really take individual policies in isolation. These are then supported as well by the appropriate assessment information report, part of the Habitats Regulations assessment. This addresses any adverse effects that the plan would have on the integrity of European sites and recommends mitigation measures to reduce these effects. I can advise now that the report shows that the draft plan will have no adverse effects on the integrity of European sites. The plan, technical annex and essay are all available for comments as part of this consultation. The appropriate information report is just there to support the other three documents. When you land in the plan itself, you'll be first taken to the vision, which provides a 20-year horizon for how we'd expect the South East Marine Plan area to look after 20 years of implementation of the Marine Plan. Objectives in the plan then provide a link between the vision and the policies. Experience from the development of plans in the East and South has led us to adopt the high-level marine objectives from the Marine Policy Statement, as the objectives for the plan for the South East. They cover the full scope of sustainable development, covering principles of sustainable marine economy, ensuring a strong, healthy and just society, and living within environmental limits. The technical annex, as I said, provides even more detail about each policy. An example is given there for aggregates. When you're responding to the consultation, we strongly encourage you to use the government's online tool called Citizen Space to make your responses. Using that tool will ensure that your comments on the plan are specific to a section that you intended. That will help us to analyse them in the most effective way and reduce any chance of incorrect interpretation. A link has been provided to the consultation in your invite to the webinar. So if you're not sure how to access the plans and the tool, then follow that link. We suggest that you become familiar with the questions before you really tear into the plans, and certainly to respond. That gives you an overview of the structure, consultation, and how you might ultimately make your comments felt. We also encourage you to review the various supporting documents as well, and that will help you to understand the draft plan itself.
Has joined the conference.
Finally, do consider the plan as a whole, using all these documents. It doesn't pay, as I said before, to take any one element in isolation. You really need to review each plan in the context of the rest of the policies for the plan. You can check out all the data and evidence that we're licensed to use using our Explore Marine Plans tool, which is, a link is shown there on the slide. We also always seek feedback on the mechanism for making these responses. We're always keen to improve our practice. We work quite hard, we feel, to engage stakeholders and to secure your representations on the documents, but do help us to improve our future practice, making comments on the tool itself when it presents itself in Citizen Space. When you land in the tool, then you can scroll down this page, and you can see the drop-down box there showing all documents that are available to be downloaded: the plan, technical annex, sustainability appraisal, HabDrags report, and so on. It's really important that you tell us who you are, because we need to ensure transparency and that real people are making real comments on the draft South East Marine Plan. It also helps us to analyse any trends in the responses. There'll be questions as well about the background to the plan and context for it. Question on the vision, 20-year horizon for the South East Marine Plan, and then questions on the policies. All the while, there's a progress bar on the side there, which will indicate to what extent you've answered the various questions. And you'll see that the questions varies depending on the policy. For aggregates, for instance, there's more because there actually are more aggregate policies. You're able to respond individually on each policy as you go through. You'll first be asked to indicate whether you support or not the policy and tick the box for yes, yes to change, or no. Whatever you tick, we'd like you to elaborate on your reason for saying yes, yes to change, or no in the dialog box below. Many of the policies in the South East Marine Plan are similar or the same as in the other three marine plans. And to make your life easier, if you consider that your response also applies to one or more of the other three draft marine plans, then you can tick the boxes at the bottom there to extend your comment to those, and means you don't need to complete more than just this one response. All the time, you have the chance to save your comments and return later. You don't have to complete your response in one sitting. The main plan is quite a long document, and this way you can come back a number of sessions to complete your response, saving it and returning for later. Just make sure, though, that you do finally submit your response when you're happy with covering all the bits you need to, because until you do submit, press the submit button, then your response hasn't actually been submitted, and do that before the 6th of April. You click on the guidance drop-down any time, and that gives you hints and tips for that point in the consultation, various documents that are at that point in the citizen space. So, after all this journey that the Southeast Marine Plan has been on, all your engagement to date, the Southeast Marine Plan really comes into its own when it is being implemented. What does implementation mean? It simply means using the Marine Plan as a management tool to make decisions relating to the marine environment as part of a plan-led process using the appropriate marine policy documents, which include the MPS and the Draft Southeast Marine Plan. I might just remind you to keep on submitting your questions through Slido, because that Slido tool will be closing shortly. So how are these plans implemented then? Well, principally through decisions made by public authorities, including ministers of the Crown, MMO, ports, local planning authorities, and so forth. The publication of the Southeast Marine Plan makes it now a material consideration in those decisions, really, but it's once it's adopted after consultation when it really takes effect. It does so through two kinds of decision. Those that are authorization or enforcement must be made in accordance with, and the wording is quite crucial there, the Marine Plan and the MPS. If an authority is making a decision of an authorization or enforcement nature which is not in accordance with the Marine Plan, they need to give their reasons as to why they have done that. The other kind of decision are those that are not authorization or enforcement, but still affect the Southeast Marine Plan area. These decisions must have regard to the Marine Plan. I could, as a side, point out here that nationally significant infrastructure projects, including offshore wind farms of 100 plus megawatts, because they have their own national post statement, really, that does take precedence over the MPS and Marine Plan, and those decisions are taken then, again, must have regard to this Marine Plan. We won't be leaving you alone, though, to implement these plans. To aid the implementation, we have set up a bunch of training sessions. Some of you may already have availed yourselves of that or be signed up for it. These are aimed particularly at decision makers, but also can be for other stakeholder groups. If you have interest in receiving an implementation training session, we encourage you to contact Tom in the first instance, really, or planning@marinemanagement.org.uk, or in fact, just contact any member of the marine planning team known to you, and we can point you in the right direction. Just to recap then, why should you bother responding to consultation? What are the benefits of doing so? Well, in particular, it raises awareness of the proposed direction to be taken for the sustainable development of the Southeast Marine Plan area. And we especially need your knowledge, your wisdom, expertise to ensure that the plans are locally specific and take into account local issues and challenges and opportunities. Your input as well will support the implementation of the plan and its policies. It's really important that we secure a balance of views across all sectors of interest, really. Having your say will ensure we achieve that and that your voice is heard. Thank you. I'll hand you over back now to Rachel.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mel. Oh, there's a lot of information there, and I'm having a look at Slido while I'm talking to you. There are loads of really good questions on there. We are just about to close in terms of the top 5 that I answered, but I might get through a couple of others. However, if you have thought of something at some point through those presentations that you would like an answer to, do just still go on Slido and write it in, and I'll provide a written response to you. Okay, so just to conclude our presentation, oh no, wait, sorry, I've got one more question for you. I was jumping ahead there, forgetting my last poll question. So most of you said yes in the first poll question, but you'll see the next poll question has opened. It's the same as the second one. Having now listened to everything that we've had to tell you today, apart from the question and answers, have you changed your mind about responding to the consultation? I hope those of you who said yes have not. But those of you that were not sure or had said no, are you now considering submitting a response? So please select the correct answer, yes, no, not sure, or you've already responded, which is amazing, by the way, if you've done that in this last half hour. And if you click submit, I should be getting the answers the answer's great. You're all saying yes again. That's fantastic. Okay. So, if any of you were still on the fence, please do consider submitting a response to us. The only way we can get the best possible plan for the South East is if we take on board as many possible comments as we can. If you are a decision maker in the South East Inshore Plan area, please do start having regard to the policies in the draft South East Marine Plan, as it is a material consideration. There's guidance on what a material consideration is within decision making on gov.uk. If you would like to be kept up to date, then please do subscribe to our newsletter. The email address is there on the screen for those of you that don't already have it, planning@marinemanagement.org.uk. Send us an email asking to subscribe to our newsletter and mailing list. You'll be informed of all updates across all plan areas and all marine planning activity here from the MMO. As both Mel and Tom have said, over the rest of the winter up to the beginning of spring, we are providing implementation training sessions to decision-making organisations within the South East Marine Plan area. If your organisation would like to make use of this training opportunity, which is free, we don't charge, please do contact Tom, your local marine planner, to discuss opportunities and how that might work for your organisation. I will be providing details at the end of the webinar for the coastal marine planners both in the South East and the East and the South Plan areas. Finally, do please start using our online tool, which is called Explore Marine Plans. Those of you who may have been involved in marine planning in the past might remember we had a tool called the Marine Information System. Explore Marine Plans replaces this. It has been developed over the last couple of years with users to make sure that there's the best functionality possible. And the tool is there to display data that supports marine planning, as well as to enable you to actually use the plans in a dynamically spatial way. We are not consulting within this time frame on Explore Marine Plans, but if you have any comments or you have any data that you think would be relevant for marine planning, you can submit them or it to us at planning@marinemanagement.org.uk. Okay, let's move on to the question and answer session. So we did get quite a few really good questions. I'll try and answer them as succinctly as possible so that we can get through most of them. The top voted question was, are there MMO definitions for environmental net gain and natural capital to give guidance on how this policy will be implemented? There wasn't previously. So the short answer is no, because the MMO and marine planning, whilst we're committed to delivering the principles set out in DEFRA's 25-year environment plan, including those aims to embed environmental net gain and natural capital principles in development, we don't develop those definitions. That sits with DEFRA. So marine net environmental gain and marine natural capital are emerging areas of work. We're working really closely with DEFRA to ensure that the marine plans develop alongside and are aligned with current government guidance and approaches. Obviously, the South East Marine Plan has a 20-year horizon, So the policy that we actually have there in the draft marine plan is what we call a holding policy. And if you read the details of how it is to be implemented in the technical annex, you can actually see that that refers to guidance as it's produced. Obviously, we are testing something here. It's quite a bold policy, and we welcome all and any feedback which will help not only develop the South East Marine Plan so that it works, but also to feed into the development of those concepts within DEFRA. Hopefully that answers your questions. I actually was, the work's ongoing, and I was actually at a workshop yesterday talking about this, so we think it's quite a quickly moving area of work. Okay. The second question is, will the MMO request call in if a local authority makes a decision that is not in accordance with the Marine Plan? Again, no. The Marine Planning Authority in England is the Secretary of State for the Environment. The MMO has delegated functions in relation to plan development, implementation and monitoring. We do not have an enforcement function. If a decision is made... I'll just wait
has left the conference.
If a decision is made not in accordance with the Marine Plan, it is at the individual decision maker's risk. So if you want more information about that, do sign up to one of our implementation training sessions or get in touch with us at planning@marinemanagement.org.uk. Okay, then the third question was, what is the distance inland above tidal limits and high water marks that the plans need to be accounted for in land management decisions and river basin management? That's a really good question. So for the southeast, we go up to mean high water springs. So that's up to Teddington on the River Thames, the Orwell River through to Ipswich, and the Medway through to Tunbridge. Just trying to read my writing there. I was scribbling while you were asking the questions. Beyond that, we haven't really tested decisions that are made upriver, but the plan bites within the jurisdiction within which we sit. So decisions that may affect the marine area further up might want to take regard of some of the policies in the plan, but certainly they're not held to the same level of MACA as decisions that are within the plan area. Okay, now this is a good question, and it's actually really, the fourth question is, have the South and East Marine Plans worked since adoption? Are there any lessons learned that have been taken forward in the South East Plan? It's a really good question, because obviously you border both of those marine plan areas. Marine planning has been an evolution. The East Marine Plans were the first ever marine plan produced in UK waters, and we learned a lot while doing the work as well as developing the plan. We have written one report on the East Marine Plan, the first 3-year report, and the second is actually about to be laid before Parliament. And we have monitored the effectiveness of the policies within the East Marine Plan. We took our learning from the process in developing the East Marine Plan and fed it into the process we use for the South. So you'll see that in the South, the policies, whilst broadly the same areas, have more specificity. We've developed the evidence base a little bit more, and we've tested some new things out in the South. All of that has been fed into the development of the draft South East Marine Plan, and we learned a lot of lessons, and we're continually learning. So the outcomes, for example, of the second 3-year report for the East Marine Plan and the monitoring approach is feeding into how we monitor the South East Marine Plan and the policies that sit in there. So yes, and it will continue to do so. We are testing and refining as we go along. We also have learned from devolved administration's development of marine plans. So we work closely with Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, and we have also worked with international countries who are delivering marine plans too, to learn lessons there. Fifth question, will the marine plans, once approved, be reviewed and updated over time? Yes. However, the process was in the wheel that Tom was explaining to you. We are required in the legislation to write a report on the outcomes of any adopted marine plan no less than 3 years after adoption and every 3 years after that. The things that we monitor are the context within which the plan sits, the process of implementing the plan both externally and internally, because obviously marine licensing at the MMO and other functions are decision makers in the marine, but also our external decision makers to. And what we do is we take all that information to talk about process of implementation and then the outcomes. So how far have we gone towards achieving those objectives within the Marine Plan? What happens then is the report is laid before Parliament, and accompanying the report we make a recommendation. And the recommendation from the MMO is either plan's working great, we don't need to make any changes, we need to amend some elements of the plan perhaps, or we need to completely replace the plan. And that recommendation goes up to the Secretary of State for the Environment, who is the Marine Planning Authority for England, and a decision is then made about whether to follow the recommendation. We have not done a review yet, but it's highly possible that one will be coming in the near future. So again, we will be taking all of the lessons that we've learned in the development of the South East and the other 3 plan areas in any amendment process. And obviously the plans have a 20-year horizon, so the context within which they sit could change quite rapidly, and we need to keep that under review too. I'll answer maybe 1 or 2 more. So the MMO has circulated monitoring surveys asking users, how does the plan influence, how does it fit with the overall process? And the question is, I think the question is, what kinds of things are you finding from them? So for those that are not aware of our monitoring surveys, for adopted marine plans in the East and the South, we are currently asking decision makers and marine plan users a series of survey questions. We're particularly interested in how external decision makers are using the plan in their decision-making process, because that allows us to write the report about the process of how the plan is being used. So that the surveys fit, we do them annually because that gives us a time series of data. And the way that that fits into the process is we use the surveys to perhaps have follow-up verification interviews with some decision makers. We use that to inform the report. It's really important, if you are a decision maker in the East or the South or just on the border there, that you respond to those surveys honestly, because that allows us to inform Parliament honestly of how the plans are being used, and then that will also allow us to inform our recommendations to the Secretary of State about whether we need to amend or not, or replace the plan. Okay, I've got a couple of minutes, so I'll do a couple more. A couple of you wanted to know, how do I respond to the consultation without using the online tool? We are really encouraging everyone to use the government online consultation tool, Citizen Space. We have made it and structured it as easy as we can, and we've taken on board feedback from previous engagements about being able to save and come back, about being able to apply your comments across multiple plan areas, etc. The reason we're asking people to do that is because it allows us to take your comments exactly in the context within which you intend. Whilst we would like you to review the whole plan, we recognise that you may have no comments on some of the policies, and that's fine. We've had partial responses to date. We've had responses on just particular areas of interest. And what that does is it allows us to build up a picture across all sectors and user groups of the Marine Plan. So we are encouraging everyone to use that tool. If you send us a written response, we will really struggle to be able to take those comments in context. There are boxes in Citizen Space to put broad comments if you have got some that are not directed at particular policies, the vision or the objective, and you can use those. However, if you are having accessibility issues, i.e. you're struggling to use a digital platform, do get in touch with us at planning@marinemanagement.org.uk, and we will see what we can do to accommodate your needs. Okay, 27, so I'm running out of time, and I'm very conscious that you have all given up quite a lot of your time today to listen to us. So I'm going to take a couple of questions. So there were a couple about independent investigation. In summary, what does the plan itself say? That's quite a big thing. The plan is looking to seek to address environmental, social and economic interests in the South East. We would be here all day if I tried to do that on the hub. So I'll go and write a response that's brief. And then there's a couple of questions about other implementation training. So I'll take those away and I'll answer those in writing, and we'll circulate those as soon as we can. Thank you very much for your input today. Okay, what are the next steps? You've already heard the consultation closes on Monday the 6th of April. So you've got loads of time. I would suggest looking at the consultation sooner rather than later so that you can gauge how long it's going to take you to write your response.
Has left the conference.
Following the consultation, we'll be producing a summary of the consultation within 12 weeks. That will be quite broad brush in terms of what we're going to do with those responses, any changes that are likely to be made. But we recognise that over the summer we might have to go back to certain stakeholders or respondents to the consultation to work out some of the more detailed or complex comments. So we will be doing that within the team, and then we will be submitting the finalised South East Marine Plan to DEFRA for government sign-off. It goes around all the government departments, and for Secretary of State sign-off the end of September this year. That's our internal target. We will then hopefully, depending on the speed at which government works and whether there are emerging priorities, be signed off at the end of this year. That's well within our target of early 2021. Once adopted, the South East Marine Plan will be supported by all of the assessment products, the SA, the HRA, but we will also be publishing a full summary of responses and the changes that were made within the final South East Marine Plan following consultation, and this is called a modifications report. Okay, so subscribe to our newsletter if you haven't already. I'll be showing you some contact details on the next slide. Start using the Draft South East in your decision-making processes. Get in touch about implementation training sessions, and have a look at our Explore Marine Plans online tool as well. So our final slide is all the contact details for our coastal marine planners. It's Tom Pavitt, who you heard today in the South East, but Georgie Sutton is based in the East Plan area in Lowestoft. So if you're on the border there and that's a more appropriate person, you can get in touch with her. And we've got Carter Rippon in the South Plan area if you're on the border with the South. You can see all of the other coastal planners there, and our planning mailbox email at the top should you need it. Just like to take a moment to thank everyone on the call for joining us today and for asking the really great questions that you did. And thank you to the team here for presenting to you all. I hope to see your responses to the Draft South East Marine Plan consultation very soon. Thanks again, and bye from us.
Dina Crabb has left the conference.
Anthony Taylor
Has left the conference. Has left the conference. Has left the conference.
Mike Atkins
Has left the conference.